Hey everybody, it's Marisa Portuondo from Portuondo Law Firm here with an update on PPP and other SBA financial assistance available to small businesses. Now, as you know, I have been providing updates pretty much since day one of all of this happening as far as the EIDL and the PPP, but I did stop for a while. And the reason why, as you probably know, is that they ran out of money. Now there's more money. Now people are back in the game and getting funded again. So today I actually sat in on a lecture that was put on by the Florida Bar, and the speakers were bankers, which was really awesome because we got to hear exactly from the bankers' mouths what is going on, what are the updates. These are the people who really need to have their ear to the ground for obvious reasons and know exactly what the current status of everything is. Now, I know the most frustrating part of this for business owners, including myself, has been the lack of information and the changing information coming from the SBA. It just seems like almost every single day there's, a different update and there's different rules. So keep in mind, today is April 30th, 2020. And if you're watching this in the future, things may have changed. But as of today, this is the most current information that we have. So I'm going to be looking at my notes because it's a lot of information, but I wanted to get it to you because it's important information. Some of it you may know, some of it is probably new to you. So let's start with PPP, and a lot of this is going to have to do with how to spend the money and make sure that it gets forgiven. Now, 8 weeks. You have 8 weeks to spend your money. And a big question I've been getting from my clients and from other people is, when does that 8 weeks start, right? What if my business is completely shut down? What if I want to use that money for when my employees are working so that they can be on unemployment and then I can pay them when my business opens? It makes sense, right? From a business owner's perspective, but that's not the rule. The rule is the 8 weeks starts the day you get your money. So keep that in mind. Remember, you have to spend things by the rules in order to get it forgiven. Now, as you know, this loan, if it's not forgiven, is considered a 2-year loan at a 1% interest rate. It doesn't have to be paid for 6 months, and during those 6 months, interest is accruing. So if you want to calculate how much interest will be accruing before you need to pay, a simple rule is just a 0.5, right? 0.5% for the 6 months. That's what you're basically accruing before you start paying. You can pay early if you want to. Now, as of today, and this is exactly the words that the bankers use, which means it may change. As of today, the remaining 18 months of that loan are amortized, okay? And the way they worked it out is that for every $1,000 that is not forgiven, you can calculate approximately $55 a month for 18 months that you will be paying to pay off that $1,000 over 18 months. And so, if you're a smaller business and maybe $2,000 wasn't forgiven, you're talking $110 a month. That's probably not going to make or break you. But if you took out a massive loan, this could really be something that can affect you. So it's important that you keep this in mind and that you really do everything you can to get your loan forgiven. And that's why I'm here talking to you about this today. Now, they mentioned this is a very low interest rate, obviously 1%, amazing, but it is a steep amortization rate. So keep that in mind, okay? ADP and other payroll companies are preparing reports for their clients to help them stay on track with forgiveness. They are preparing reports for what you spent in the past and what you are spending moving forward to make it easy to prove that you did it correctly. Now, keep in mind, once again, because of the moving target and the changing rules, some of the earlier reports from these payroll companies actually were wrong. So if you're going off old reports, you may want to make sure you have updated reports so that you're using the correct updated information. Now, good news on the tax front, the amount that gets forgiven on your loan is not taxable. So that's great news, especially again, if you have, a huge loan that you're taking out that will not be taxed as income. That's great news. There is still a lot of uncertainty, and we are hoping, the bankers told us they are expecting to get more guidance by the end of May. I know that this can be really horribly inconvenient as far as timing goes for those of you who were funded early on in April, because that basically puts you at the end of your 8-week cycle when these new guidelines come out. If I could do anything about it, obviously I would, but this is just the way it is. And I guess this is some good news for the people who are getting funded later on. It seems like you will have more guidance throughout the process to make sure that you get forgiven. So that's some good news for the people who have been really feeling left behind and frustrated and stressed out. Again, there's a big difference between taking out a loan and having free money. So that's great news for the people who are, either haven't been funded yet or will be, or recently got funded. There's been a lot of confusion as to the economic injury disaster loan and the PPP and how they play together. And the one thing that we got from this lecture is it seems to be the same, which is you cannot use the money from both loans for the same purpose. So that is something that you need to keep in mind. Now, the banker said this, but I have heard different things as late as today. I was actually in another lecture, and there is a little bit of conflicting information here, so it's something to keep in mind. But the bankers said, whatever money you got from the grant, you need to subtract that from the amount that's going to be forgiven in your PPP loan. So whether that's true or not, I guess remains to be seen, but I would expect that, so that you're playing it safe with your financial planning. Now, and remember, that's up to $10,000, that grant. So we're not talking about millions of dollars here or anything, but still it could be a significant amount of money, especially for smaller businesses. Now, the best thing you can do for forgiveness is obviously to keep impeccable records. You want to have really good records, really clean records of not only what you spend, but what is your 8-week payroll expense. And this is where those reports that these companies are doing can really come in handy. If you still haven't calculated your amounts, the majority of people are going to be using their 940 or 941 to calculate what their eligible payroll amount is, okay? And that tends to cover most things like healthcare, retirement benefits, and so on. Now, if you are using private retirement vendors, you may have to use internal reports to, get all of those funds into your calculations. This wasn't part of the lecture, but I'm going to throw it in here anyway, because I have gotten this question a lot. And my understanding is if you are a sole proprietorship, you should be using your Schedule C to calculate the payroll loan amount. You will want to confirm that obviously with the bank you're working with. Now, a big message was, guess what? It's not too late. There is still money. They're still dispersing it, okay? And even these banks are suggesting work with small banks. They didn't even tell us the name. Well, I guess they did tell us the name of their bank, but they weren't advertising. And they are, so I don't think it was a self-serving comment. And this is what I have been hearing throughout, basically colleagues, other business owners, speaking to bankers. It seems like the smaller community banks are the ones processing these loans quicker. And these particular bankers actually said that bigger banks are referring people to them. So something to keep in mind if you still haven't applied. And another thing that I've been told is that it doesn't matter if you've already applied with a big bank, you can still go ahead and apply with a smaller bank. It will not hurt you. All right. So a few other things that we touched on. One of the questions that was asked in the lecture was, what if I pay my employee and they're not working up to my standards? Like they're, maybe they're working remotely and they're only working at a 50% productivity rate or something like that. The universal answer was too bad. You cannot put conditions on paying these people. If you take out this money, it is for the intention of keeping people employed, and you need to spend it as if that person, basically you're spending the same amount of money on their employment. So do not put any kind of condition on that, or that will harm your forgiveness. All right. Rent and utilities. A lot of people are finding when they do their calculations, they can't spend 25% in 8 weeks on rent and utilities. And so I actually asked the question, can you prepay rent? I assumed the answer was going to be no, and it was no. However, what they did say was, if you've already paid for, let's say, May and June, and you still have some money left over, and it's, June 20th, June 25th, something like that, it's later in the month, and you have a little bit of money left over, you could pay for July. That is a reasonable amount of time to prepay your rent, but you're not paying, July, August, September, that kind of stuff, because then you're, kind of cheating the system. Now, can you include the amount paid to a third party to process payroll? That was another question. The answer is no. There's been a lot of back and forth on what interest on what debt can be part of that 25%. And again, this is the 25% of the PPP loan. A lot of people have said it's only your mortgage interest on, commercial properties, but some guidance, some written guidance has said any debt that was incurred before February 15th, you can pay the interest on that debt using this 25%. And this seems to still be unclear. Okay. And one of the bankers said that he heard firsthand from a Treasury official that it was only mortgage interest. However, they think that by the end of May, there might be more information, and that might include things such as debt that was incurred prior to February 15th. So, stay tuned on that. Hopefully, it won't be until the end of May, but, we're kind of at their mercy here. Now, when you're calculating, and I'm sorry, this is kind of all over the place, back and forth, but this is the way the lecture was put on, and I wanted to get this information to you as quickly as possible. I literally just got out of a mediation about an hour ago. So FICA, when you're calculating your loan amount, FICA, the portion that comes from the employee is included. The portion that comes from the employer is not. So keep that in mind. Another big one has been, are distributions considered part of payroll? If you are in an S Corp, no, they are not. Okay. And finally, are you responsible for back pay if you decreased the payment that you are giving your employees prior to receiving the loan? The answer is no. However, if you want to pay more, you can, but it is not a requirement. So, I hope that answers some questions. I know there's been a lot of confusion. There will probably still be more confusion as the days come. I'm going to do my best to continue keeping you informed as to all the changes, and make sure you're following us on, all the social media channels. As you can see, I'm having a little bit of fun with my background. And if anyone can tell me where this is, I don't know, you'll just get some props, I guess, because I don't really have a prize in mind. All right, take care and stay safe.